Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about class battle in Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and how it is definitely impacted by IRL, or even the question if it is impacted by IRL. So let's get into this. So basically, I've been watching the show Outer Banks, and it just dropped its second season on Netflix. I blasted through the second season. I really love the show. I will warn everybody. Do not. It has basically do not learn any lessons from any characters in this show from a life perspective. The show has an interesting theme, and the main theme of the show is about the Outer Banks. The Outer Banks is a place in America that is an incredibly wealthy beach area. Okay, so I think it's like in the middle of the East Coast. I think it's like in the Virginia area, right? And it's just a bunch of super rich people who own beach houses down in the Outer Banks. And among them, they are served by a large number of poor people, right? Now, I think that accurately summarizes what the Outer Banks actually are in IRL, right? So this show is based in the Outer Banks, and the entire show is about the tension between the Pogues and the Kooks, right? So the Pogues are poor people. Pogues are Pogues, and they're poor people, okay? And then the Kooks are rich people, Kooks, okay? So the Kooks call the Pogues Pogues, the Pogues call the Kooks Kooks, and they hate each other in this show. And this show, boy, this show has a few premises. One of the premises is that rich people are villains, right? I don't agree with that. I think that rich and poor people can be villains, but this show, every Pogue is a saint, and every Kook is just a vampiric, like, super villain, right? It's just the way the show is, and it's for drama. It's a live action show with a lot of action and drama in it, and I enjoy it. I want to be super clear. I do really enjoy this show. So this show is constant class battle. It's not class warfare because there's not enough people involved to be warfare, but it is definitely battle. Class battle, right? And class battle at the level of like Pogues and Kooks hating each other so much that they kill each other a lot. And this show is constantly Pogues and Kooks coming at each other with guns, knives, and fists. Like, it is just class battle through and through, right? And so basically its premise is that in America the divide between the rich and poor is incredibly, it's really wide, and that the haves and the have-nots, and it's really incredibly wide. I'm not sure I buy on to the idea that it's as wide as people think, only because I think we've reached a point in America where poor people in America have a safety net that really is, I would say, unequaled almost anywhere in the world, right? Like, I know that, and I really feel very strong about this because, we catch a lot of flack in the U.S. for like a capitalized health system, right? But this debate is over, right? We just had, the 2019 debacle. Lots of people got infected, and who put up? It's put up or shut up, right? You got the vaccines, and guess what? Hey, let's put everything on universal health care. They did not defeat America in in creating, distributing, owning, having, or doing anything with vaccines. Like, I think America made more vaccines than the entire America's singular capitalistic health system outperformed the entire rest of the world's universal health care countries combined, right? Like, I am not hearing America going, oh, hey, can you universal health systems give us your patents so we can make some good vaccines? That ain't happening, right? And I also don't hear the America go, oh, hey, the rest of the world, you guys have all those universal healthcare systems. Can you send us some vaccines? No, that's not happening either, right? The debate's over, right? So, like, we won, right? Like, America won, right? And the reality is, it's increasingly, it's looking like we have an unusual safety net, but we have one, right? And poor in America are not at zero, right? It's not how it is, right? In fact, shockingly, the poor in America have some surprising problems for being poor, right? Like, it's it's an issue, right? So it's pretty crazy. So but I don't want to ignore what the show is saying, right? I think there is differences between Pogues and Kooks, and here's the question that comes to mind: are adventurers Pogues or Kooks? Okay, can adventurers be poor? And here's your answer: no. Like, I think there's a lot of, like, a perfect example of this is a game, Five Torches Deep. They're like, you're scrabbling dirt farmers. Do you have a torch? And I'm like, no, man. Like, and D&D just don't play this noise. They are very realistic about this, and they're like, hey, if you're an adventurer, you got money. You pay in gold, right? And that's just it. In D&D, it is so incredibly clear that that adventurers are kooks. Adventurers are kooks. Adventurers are wealthy, right? And just the idea that every single thing they buy, right, is bought with gold coins. And peasants, right, in Dungeons and Dragons, some of them might go a lifetime without ever even seeing a gold coin, right? And they pay in copper and silver, so the reality is, I think when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, we'd like to say, certain things that, that adventurers are scrabblers, right? And they do scrabble for power, but they don't scrabble for coin or money or power, right? Actually, they don't scrabble for weapons. They don't scrabble for equipment. Like, they're trying to get magic items, right? Like, mundane stuff is, like, common, right? It's literally called common in the game, right? So, and there are common magic items that adventurers get. So adventurers are quite rich in Dungeons & Dragons. I think we need to recognize that our adventurers are rich. We're not dealing with these scrabbling. It's just not happening, right? So, just wanted to let you know that. And I think it's kind of interesting to recognize that, and so because I think it really impacts our game, and we really need to think. When we are playing in Dungeons & Dragons, we are not dealing with the issues of the poor. It just, ever, right? Like, it's just ridiculous to put out this idea. And I also want to say, from a story perspective, Dungeons & Dragons is 100% right. Pretending that you have a powerful person who is poor is a bad business model for any IP, all right? You know what proves this strongest to me is the Harry Dresden novels. They are such pure junk nonsense. I don't like them. I do not like the Dresden novels. I think they're stupid. And here's why. The Dresden novels are a poor wizard. Like, there are no poor wizards, right? Like, and Dungeons & Dragons doesn't even pretend this, right? Like, they're like, you want to write a page in your spell book? It's 100 gold pieces to write it in your spell book. They're like, putting pen to paper for magic costs coin, a lot of it. Right, like, and so, like, when I read the Dresden novels, I'm like, wait, this dude's a wizard and he's poor? Like, what? Like, I'm like, with even a few cantrips, I could be rich, right? Like, what's this guy's problem that he can cast magic, but he can't figure out how to make a living, right? Like, and so, I love that D&D is very realistic and upfront about this, right? If you have the power to fight monsters, you're not poor, period, right? Like, it's, like, even just equipping yourself with weapons costs money, right? So now, is this a problem that we need to fix, right? Should we be dealing with more poor person issues in Dungeons and Dragons? It's an interesting question. I think the answer is we should not be emulating poor person problems with our player characters, but dungeon masters are absolutely, I think, very much called to call out poor people problems in non-player characters, and personally, I think they should be very careful to position player characters to solve poor person problems through adventure, through bravery, through action, right? And I think we as dungeon masters can really do a good job of highlighting poor person problems in the game, and give our player characters maybe a little better idea of the poor person problems that are around them. I do think people have problems in America, poor person problems in America. I don't think they're what most people think they are, right? I think I think poor person problems in America are very different than they are in any other country in the world. Um, we should solve them, but I think we have some work to do to even recognize what they actually are, right? Because we really live in a very, very unusual world at this point. And I don't think there's a full understanding of what poor person problems actually are in America. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you deal with this in your Dungeons and Dragons games? How do you highlight poor person problems and allow player characters to solve those? The other thing that I would ask is, do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that poor person problems can actually be reflected and played out with adventures? I do think there's some tabletop role-playing games that have this idea. Warhammer flirts with it. I think it's ridiculous. I think the idea of a poor wizard or even a poor fighter, it's absurd, right? Like, it's ridiculous. It's a romantic fantasy, no pun intended. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.